When you're picking a handgun to carry every day, looks and specs alone don't cut it. What really matters is that the gun works reliably when you need it. A lot of models look great on paper but have a heavy trigger, clumsy controls, or are picky about ammunition, and those little faults can turn into a disaster in a life or death moment. This short piece points out what you shouldn't be looking for in a carry gun: out-of-the-box reliability, natural handling under pressure, and ease of repair and parts availability, 3 survival-level criteria to check before you decide to carry a gun. Hi-Point C9. When someone mentions the Hi-Point C9, reactions usually split into 2 camps. One says, cheap, goes bang, done, and the other says, don't carry that for your life. The truth sits between those extremes, and that's why the C9 keeps being debated. On paper, the C9 is a compact 9mm that uses a blowback action. Hi-Point describes it as delayed blowback in some documents, with a barrel length of about 3.5 inches, an overall length of 6.75 inches, and a weight of around 29 ounces, which means it's comparatively chunky and heavy next to many modern 9mm compacts. The standard magazine is a single-stack 8-round magazine. There's a 10-round option. It has 3-dot sights and an adjustable rear sight. The manufacturer also states the gun is 100% assembled in the United States and is rated to handle +P, that is, +P overpressure ammunition, and it comes with a lifetime warranty. Facts that explain why many people still buy it as a truck gun or a training gun when money is tight. So why do a lot of shooters put the Hi-Point C9 on their don't carry list? The main reasons are the sum of its crude design, the way it feels to manipulate, and some feeding issues with modern defensive ammunition. The C9 is built extremely simply. The slide and frame are large blocks. The aesthetics are a bit blokey. That keeps the price down to unbelievable levels. Original manufacturers' suggested retail price ranged between $169 and $199, but it also gives a top-heavy, unbalanced feel in the hand. Many practical tests show that while the C9 will run fine with inexpensive full metal jacket ammunition, when you move to hollow point defensive ammunition, the kind most carriers use, some examples have reported failures to feed or failures to eject that require remedial manipulations, drop the magazine, tap and rack, to get running again. These faults aren't consistent. Many pistols run fine, many others have problems. But that inconsistency is exactly what you don't want for self-defense. You want a gun that's take it out and it works, not a gun that's cheap but a little unpredictable. Talking about the trigger and controls, the C9's trigger is widely described as mushy. It has a long travel, a vague break, and a soft reset, which makes getting a really accurate first shot under stress harder. That said, given the price and the intended use, some shooters accept that trade-off if they only want something that will basically go bang in a safe or in a truck. The reality is, Hi-Point sells on 3 things: price, basic durability, and that lifetime warranty. Ergonomically, the grip and fit aren't refined like the big brand pistols, so reloads, magazine releases, and getting the gun on target quickly aren't as comfortable or intuitive as on modern designs. A trained operator can compensate, but someone who expects a buy and carry experience may be disappointed. The C9's strengths are obvious. It's so inexpensive that many see it as, there's no cheaper new option if you want a 9mm. It's assembled in the United States, and Hi-Point's lifetime warranty gives peace of mind for after-sales support, and its big, chunky frame tolerates rough handling and abuse better than some high-end polymer pistols. Also, the manufacturer's claim of +P capability makes some owners feel they can step up to hotter defensive loads if needed. But those positives don't erase the design drawbacks when you're considering a daily carry gun. The weight and size make concealment harder, the feel and trigger make accurate shooting under stress more difficult, and the inconsistent reliability with modern defensive hollow point ammunition is a major strike against it. Price varies by dealer and timing. The the traditional MSRP sat in the range of $169 to $199, and street prices often fall roughly between $160 and $220 depending on finish, model, and promotions. At that price, many people accept the C9 as a cheap solution or a second gun for the house. But if your budget can stretch a few $100s more, there are compact 9mm options from major brands that offer better ergonomics, parts availability, and reliability for daily carry. So if you're seriously considering the C9 for carry, the honest question to ask yourself is, am I willing to accept the risk and the handling compromises in exchange for this price? If the answer is no, don't choose it as your primary defensive gun. If the answer is yes and you understand the limits, the C9 can still serve as a backup or range gun. In short, the Hi-Point C9 is a textbook example of extreme utilitarianism. It exists because it's cheap and basically durable, not because it's refined or high-performing. That's why it often gets listed among guns you shouldn't trust as a primary carry. When your life depends on your equipment, you want consistent, predictable behavior and minimal need for intervention. Things the C9 doesn't always guarantee. If your goal is a gun you can trust every day, invest more or pick something else. If you want something cheap, easy to fix, and backed by a strong warranty, the C9 may satisfy that specific role. 9. Kimber Solo. Beautiful but inconsistent, a painful lesson that pretty isn't always good. When Kimber introduced the Solo, their message was clear. This would be a 9mm 1911 style pistol built for concealed carry with a metal frame, a slim profile, and the feel of a scaled down 1911. On paper, the Solo looked like something a lot of shooters wanted. A barrel length of 2.7 inches, an overall length of 5.5 inches, a height of about 3.9 inches. A standard magazine capacity of 6+1 rounds, and an empty weight of only about 17 ounces. Those numbers made the Solo an attractive concealment option. Small, slim, and it looked classy compared to many micro pistols made from polymer. But real life is never just numbers, and the Solo taught a hard lesson about what you give up when you pick looks over the essentials: reliability. The reason the Solo gets labeled one of the bad pistols in carry circles isn't just a handful of minor faults. The core problem is sensitivity to ammunition and tight manufacturing tolerances. Early range reports said the Solo tended to be picky with hollow point defensive ammunition. Some owners experienced failures to feed or failures to eject with certain 124 grain or 147 grain brands, while it would run smoothly with other brands. In a carry gun scenario, it runs fine with some brands is not good enough. You need high consistency across the ammunition you can actually buy. Second, the striker single-action mechanism on the Solo produced a trigger pull around 7 pounds, which feels crisp but can be a bit heavy for many shooters, and the trigger travel was not always perfectly smooth. That makes getting a precise first shot under stress harder for people who don't train a lot. Another hit against confidence in the Solo is maintenance and teardown. Sometimes it took delicate adjustments or small factory tweaks to fix feed and extraction issues. Some owners had to send their pistols back to Kimber to replace the extractor spring or have the chamber polished. And after those fixes, the gun ran better, meaning it can be made to work reliably, but a brand new Solo straight out of the box is not guaranteed carry ready. Importantly, Kimber discontinued the Solo. The company pulled it from its official catalog a few years after release because of the reputation for reliability problems. In the 2024 to 2025 market, Solos mainly show up as old stock or on the secondhand market, with prices varying widely depending on condition. The original manufacturer's suggested retail price was around $700 to $800, but typical used prices now tend to sit between $350 and $600, and new unused examples are rare. Discontinuation reduces parts availability and support, and that's something to weigh heavily if you're considering a Solo for carry. So what does the Solo do well that keeps people attached? First is the grip feel and handling. The aluminum frame paired with a steel slide and a 1911 layout gives the Solo a much more premium feel than many micropolymer pistols. It has a 1911 style grip angle that's familiar to fans of that platform, and that often produces a more natural hold than a lot of micro designs. Some versions offered tritium sights or 3-dot sights, which help quick aiming in low light. In terms of accuracy, when the gun runs right, it shoots steady and points well thanks to the metal platform and low-bore axis. But all those positives only matter if the pistol runs reliably with the hollow point you plan to carry. And that's the sticking point that cost the Solo its reputation. If you're writing a script and want to warn viewers, Kimber Solo's story illustrates 2 key rules. 1. Looks and specs don't make up for reliability. 2. A carry gun must be tested with the exact hollow point defensive ammunition you intend to carry. Solo shows that a pretty but needs tweaking gun is not a smart choice for someone who needs a firearm that works every time. With a similar budget, you can find compact 9mm options with longer track records and ongoing production, plus easier parts support. To finish bluntly, if you own a Kimber Solo, treat it like a project. Run lots of different ammunition through it, check the extractor, consider sending it to Kimber for warranty work if needed, and accept that you may spend time and money getting it to run reliably. If you're choosing a gun to trust with your life, pick a model with a proven reliability record, clear parts availability, and continued production. That's far safer than falling for the Solo's good looks. 8. Walther CCP M2, a worthwhile fix, but it hasn't fully erased the blemishes. The Walther CCP M2 arrived promising to fix things. People like the idea of a small 9mm that shot softly, so why not keep the good bits and sort out the bugs? The CCP M2 is the result of lessons learned from the M1, a barrel length of about 3.5 inches, an overall length in the 6.3 to 6.5 inches range, and an empty weight around 20 ounces. Numbers that put it squarely in the compact category, not the micro class. The standard magazine holds 8+1 rounds, sights are 3-dot and upgradable, and the overall setup is pretty traditional. A polymer frame with a steel slide and Walther's familiar grip texture that gives a natural, confident hold compared to a lot of same-sized pistols. What they clearly improved was the internals and maintenance. Walther changed the takedown process so you can field strip the gun without special tools, a small change that matters a lot day to day. They also tuned the chamber and feed ramps to cut carbon buildup, so the CCP M2 is less finicky about cleaning than the M1 was. In many tests, the M2 showed better reliability. Stovepipes and feeding issues aren't as common, and the soft recoil feel stayed intact, which is a big win for anyone who liked the idea of 9mm but easier to handle. Still, fixed doesn't mean perfect. 2 reasons make some shooters still raise an eyebrow at the CCP M2. First, the underlying gas-delayed system is mechanically more complex. Compared to a simple striker-fired pistol, the CCP M2 has more moving parts and subtleties, which means diagnosing and fixing a problem is not always straightforward for the average carrier. Second, the market moved fast. Modern compact striker-fired pistols now deliver a smoother, easier-to-maintain experience and a wider range of aftermarket parts at similar price points. Put next to those, the recoil-reducing edge of the CCP M2 sometimes doesn't fully justify the trade-offs of fewer parts options or the perception that the M2 can be a bit picky with certain rounds. The CCP M2 strengths are real, the grip shape and angle let the gun point naturally, the shorter sight radius and reduced recoil help follow-up shots, especially useful for newer shooters or people who want less muzzle flip. Fixing the M1's takedown headaches also makes the M2 more user-friendly. Cleaning and routine maintenance are less of a chore, which increases the chance people will actually do them. On the downside, beyond the mechanical complexity and ammo sensitivity already mentioned, the CCP M2 has a smaller aftermarket scene than big-name platforms. That matters if you want custom sights, grip options, or other accessories. Choices exist, but not with the same breadth as more popular platforms. The 8-round magazine is standard for a single-stack compact 9mm, but compared with plus magazines on some competitors, it can feel limited if you prioritize round count. Price-wise, the CCP M2 launched in the mid-range for compact 9mm. You commonly see it priced around $350 to $450, depending on version and market. For that money, you get a technically refined platform, a softer recoil impulse, and the Walther name, but you should weigh that against the fact you can often buy a compact striker-fired pistol with a larger support ecosystem and simpler maintenance at the same price. Bottom line, the Walther CCP M2 is a practical upgrade. It smooths a lot of the M1's rough edges and keeps the things people liked. But in the daily carry race, it's not a one-size-fits-all winner. It's best for someone who values reduced recoil and is willing to accept a slightly more complex mechanism and a smaller aftermarket. If you want a buy-it-and-carry-it gun with the widest parts and accessory options, there are other choices that might suit you better. If you want a different recoil experience and the M2's fixes appeal to you, it's a reasonable step up from the M1. 7. Bersa Thunder 380. A classic look that still hides some real flaws when it comes to real-world use. The Bersa Thunder 380 is one of those pistols you can easily picture sitting in a gun shop display. It looks reasonable, beginner-friendly, affordable, and it carries that solid, old-school metal frame vibe. But when it comes to actually carrying it day-to-day, those dated design choices start to show. In terms of basic specs, the Thunder 380 usually has a barrel length of about 3.5 inches, an overall length between 6.3 and 6.5 inches, an unloaded weight around 24 to 26 ounces depending on the version, and a standard magazine capacity of 7+1 rounds. Those numbers technically make it a compact rather than a micro pistol, and that's the key to a lot of the debate over whether it's suitable for concealed carry. The main reason many shooters warn, "Don't carry the Thunder as your primary gun," isn't because of one fatal flaw, but a mix of several small ones. A long, heavy double-action trigger pull, a slide-mounted safety, a relatively thick profile compared to today's micro pistols, and limited magazine capacity. The first double-action pull on the Thunder requires quite a bit of force. Theoretically, that's safer, but in a real defensive situation when you need a quick and accurate first shot, that heavy pull slows reaction time and makes precise placement harder. Once it transitions to single action, the pull gets lighter. But it's still not as crisp as what you'd get from a modern striker-fired trigger, meaning you have to compensate with skill. The slide-mounted safety is another divisive detail. Some people are fine with it. Others find it awkward compared to frame-mounted safeties or modern striker-fired guns with no manual safety at all, especially when adrenaline is pumping and one extra motion can lead to a mistake. Ergonomically, the Thunder 380 isn't exactly the slimmest option for concealment. Compared to newer micro 9mm or 380 pistols, it tends to feel a bit thick in the pocket or print more under tighter clothing, which cuts down its concealability, something a lot of concealed carriers care deeply about. The limited magazine capacity also changes your tactical mindset. This isn't the gun you expect to dump multiple magazines with, it's more of a 1 or 2 decisive shots firearm that depends heavily on your accuracy. Some owners have also pointed out that the controls and finish feel dated next to newer polymer designs. Functional, yes, but clearly old school. That doesn't mean the Thunder 380 is a total disaster. On the plus side, it's easy to shoot for beginners thanks to the softer recoil of 380 ACP ammunition. It often has better than average sights for a small pistol, and the all-metal build gives it a steady, planted feel while shooting. For anyone on a budget or just looking for a range gun, the Thunder makes sense. It's durable, simple to maintain, and easy to find on the used market. New prices vary depending on the region, but generally fall in the $300 to $450 range, which many see as fair for an entry-level handgun. However, if your goal is a pistol you can draw and trust immediately for self-defense, there are thinner, lighter, and more modern options that allow faster handling, cleaner triggers, and larger magazine capacities. So the Bersa Thunder 380 teaches a pretty clear lesson. Beginner-friendly and affordable don't automatically mean ideal for self-defense. If you use it as a backup gun or a practice pistol, accept those limits and train accordingly. But if you're looking for a primary carry weapon, you'd be better off with something designed for fast, instinctive shooting. A gun built for that split-second draw, aim, and fire without forcing you to sacrifice speed or control for nostalgia. 6. Kel-Tec P-11 Small, light, fast, but it pays the price in stability and basic reliability. The Kel-Tec P-11 is one of the classic examples of the concealment-first philosophy. A small 9mm pistol with a barrel length of about 3.1 inches, an overall length around 5.6 inches, a height of roughly 4.3 inches, and an unloaded weight of only about 14 ounces, meaning it's lighter than most traditional compact 9mm. The standard magazine holds 10 rounds, and its narrow profile makes the P-11 disappear easily in a pocket or waistband, which has been its biggest selling point since it first appeared in the mid-1990s. Its design features an aluminum receiver housed inside a polymer frame with a steel slide and barrel. The trigger is double action only, with a relatively heavy pull of about 9 pounds to compensate for the lack of an external safety. On paper, the P-11 checks all the boxes if your top priority is small, light, and easy to carry, and in that sense, it nails its purpose. But the same traits that make the P-11 so easy to conceal are exactly what landed on many shooters' don't carry lists. The reason isn't complicated. When you stuff a full-power 9mm cartridge into an ultralight frame, every bit of recoil force gets amplified. The result is noticeably snappier recoil and more muzzle flip than you'd get with a pistol weighing 1.5 or 2 times as much. That doesn't mean it's uncontrollable. A well-trained shooter can handle it. But for anyone with less experience, follow-up shots come slower and staying on target is tougher. The small, narrow grip also makes it hard for people with larger hands to get a solid hold. That not enough to grab feeling often leads to lost sight alignment under stress and even limp wristing, a real issue with lightweight pistols. Then there's the long, heavy double-action trigger pull. It's designed for safety, but in practice it delays your first shot and requires skill to shoot quickly and accurately. Those three fundamentals together make the P-11 tricky for instinctive defensive shooting unless you've trained with it regularly. Beyond handling, there's the reality of availability and support. The P-11 was officially discontinued in 2019, so now you mostly find it as used stock or refurbished old inventory. That discontinuation affects buyer confidence. If you need spare parts, upgrades, or replacement mags, your options are far narrower than they would be for models still in production. That said, because it was produced in large numbers for years, magazines and a few accessories can still be found, though nowhere near as easily as for Glock, Smith & Wesson, or Ruger pistols. Realistically, a carry gun isn't just about how it shoots, but also about how easily you can maintain and service it over time. And in that department, the P-11 is falling behind modern competitors that are still supported by their manufacturers. To be fair, the P-11 does have some practical upsides. It's extremely lightweight and easy to conceal. You can carry it all day without feeling weighed down. And its low purchase cost makes it attractive as a range trainer, a truck gun, or a backup pistol. Its simple design means fewer parts to break if you keep it clean and perform routine maintenance. Many owners also point out that the P-11 is a great training tool for mastering grip, recoil control, and follow-up timing. Because it's unforgiving, it forces you to improve your technique quickly. As for price, since it's no longer being produced, prices vary a lot. Back when it was still in production, it sat in the mid-range for compact pistols, a few $100s, but on today's secondary market, P-11s usually go for somewhere between $120 and $350 depending on condition, factory refurbished status, and included accessories. Some factory refurbished units can show up near their old retail prices, while older, well-worn examples go for much less. If you're thinking about buying one, budget for a careful inspection, check the slide rails, recoil spring, and feed ramp condition, and test it with several kinds of ammunition. With the P-11, the difference between one that runs great and one that won't feed right can come down to tiny details. Here's the practical conclusion. The Kel-Tec P-11 was a breakthrough design in its day, meeting the demand for a truly small, concealable 9mm. But that engineering was a compromise. You trade lightweight and convenience for sharp recoil, limited ergonomics, and now that it's discontinued, a thin parts ecosystem. If your goal is a buy it and rely on it for years, carry gun, there are better choices. But if what you need is an affordable, lightweight second gun and you're willing to spend time mastering its quirks, the P-11 can still do the job in that specific role. 5. Remington R51, high-intent, flawed execution. When a classic revival turns into a lesson about quality control. When Remington launched the R51, the marketing message was obvious and appealing. This would be a compact 9mm inspired by a classic design, promising a low-bore axis, softer perceived recoil, and a size small enough for comfortable concealment. On paper, the R51 looked like a neat blend of low-bore axis to reduce muzzle flip, clean lines people liked, and a compact footprint with a standard magazine capacity of about 7 rounds. Features that made a lot of buyers excited to try a pistol that seemed to offer both style and a pleasant shooting feel. But this is one of those rare cases where the glossy promise met reality and the product that reached customers did not pass market scrutiny smoothly. The problems that landed the R51 with heavy criticism weren't just a little quirk, they were a string of production-level failures. Failures to feed, failures to extract, magazines that would loosen and fall out, and timing issues. And any of those things is a critical fault in a defensive pistol. When a gun marketed as carry-ready exhibits basic failures in feeding or extraction right out of the box, buyer confidence collapses. People don't expect to have to break in a new defensive pistol with hundreds of rounds or perform gunsmithing just to make it function reliably. For a handgun you intend to carry every day, the rule is simple. It needs to work correctly with a variety of commercially available ammunition from the start. The initial R51 production run failed to meet that expectation, and the reputation damage was immediate. Digging a little deeper, part of the root cause was trying to recreate a classic mechanism with modern manufacturing without fully nailing tolerances, parts fitment, and assembly processes. A pistol that depends on tight timing, small movement clearances, and precise mating of components cannot tolerate tiny deviations in machining or assembly. Even a small misalignment can cause feed or extraction problems. These sorts of faults aren't just inconvenient, in a self-defense context, they're dangerous. Remington later acknowledged the issues, paused production, offered repair programs, and introduced a Generation 2 that improved stability for some guns, but the initial reputation stuck. Even after fixes, many buyers on the used market remained wary. Is that R51 properly corrected? Has it been serviced by the manufacturer or a reputable gunsmith? Those lingering doubts lower the practical value of an R51 when you're choosing a carry gun. To be fair, when an R51 does run properly, it's enjoyable to shoot. The low-bore axis genuinely helps control muzzle flip. The compact dimensions support easy concealment. The ergonomics feel comfortable in the hand, and finish quality on many examples shows attention to aesthetics. If you like a classic-styled pistol with a pleasant shooting impulse, the R51 can satisfy on those emotional and handling levels. But those positives are overshadowed by real-world risk. A pretty gun that won't feed or extract reliably is worse than a plain gun that runs flawlessly. Other downsides include parts and magazine availability. When a model is paused or pulled from a manufacturer's regular lineup, getting replacement parts becomes harder, repair costs can go up, and wait times lengthen. For a carry pistol, long-term serviceability and spare parts access are part of the overall reliability picture. And an R51 that has been recalled, modified, or sits in an uncertain production status forces buyers to ask extra questions and accept extra risk. That dynamic makes the R51 a maybe item on the market. Potential, yes, but you often have to spend additional money and time to make it dependable. Price-wise, the R51 originally launched at a competitive level compared with other compact 9mm pistols in its class, but after production problems and subsequent corrective efforts, the secondary market became volatile. A cautious buyer will pay a premium for an R51 with documented factory repairs or gunsmith verification. Conversely, unchecked examples sell for less but carry risk. That uncertainty turns the R51 into a finicky item on the shelf. Interesting if you enjoy tinkering and have resources to fix it. Risky if you want a gun you can trust to protect you right away. In short, the Remington R51 is a reminder that good design intent and attractive concepts can be undone by lapses in quality control at launch. It teaches both manufacturers and buyers a hard lesson. A carry gun must be reliable immediately, and a repaired generation does not completely erase the first impression in many customers' minds. If you're thinking about an R51, treat it as a project. Only buy one if you have clear evidence it has been corrected and tested with multiple defensive loads. Otherwise, pick a platform with a proven reliability record if you want a defensive pistol you can depend on without extra work. 4. SIG Sauer P250 bold design, but the price is the user's time and effort. Some guns make you admire the engineering when you read the specs. The P250 is one of those. SIG designed the P250 as a modular platform. The frame and the barrel module can be swapped, you can change calibers, grip sizes, and even flip between configurations with a few simple steps. In size, the compact version typically has a barrel length of about 3.9 inches, an overall length around 7.2 inches, a height near 5.2 inches, and an unloaded weight in the neighborhood of 26 to 28 ounces, depending on configuration. Magazines commonly hold 10 to 13 rounds depending on the variant, and this puts the pistol in the compact Archinosh traditional category rather than the micro class. On paper, a platform like that deserves praise. You buy one frame and can adapt it for carry, duty, or competition without a huge expense. But the problem shows up when a system that complicated lands in the hands of ordinary consumers. The technical advantages quickly become practical headaches. The P250 uses a double-action-only trigger system with a stacked-style trigger, giving a long travel and a steady pull to the brake. While the philosophy behind that is safety and consistent trigger feel, in real use it slows down the speed and naturalness of the first shot. Many shooters find that when they need to fire quickly, the long travel and creep of the trigger force you to plan the shot instead of just pressing in a reflexive way. In high-stress situations that can reduce hit probability. The trigger feel isn't the sort that lets you easily index the sight onto the target the way many modern striker-fired pistols are designed to do. A very practical complaint against the P250 is parts and magazine compatibility. Although modularity theoretically increases flexibility, in practice some aftermarket parts and magazines don't fit perfectly across different modules, which leads to picky behavior if an owner tries to mix components from various configurations. People who push parts between variants have run into fitment and timing problems, issues a typical buyer won't spot at purchase. For a daily carry gun, you want something that's ready out of the box. The P250 can demand time spent tuning, testing different magazines, and sometimes light fitting to get the smoothness you expect, work most casual buyers would rather avoid. On the plus side, you can't deny the P250's strengths. It's a solid platform, the grip can be tailored to many hand sizes thanks to the interchangeable modules, and the double-action-only trigger provides a consistent pull that can be beneficial for training or environments where an added layer of safety is desired. Once adjusted and properly set up, a P250 can shoot well and reliably. Many agencies and users appreciated the concept for those reasons. The trade-off is time and effort. To make a P250 feel as smooth and dependable as a modern striker-fired compact, owners often invest in trigger polishing, magazine testing, and ensuring correct component fit, steps most carry purchasers don't want to take. Price-wise, when it was more common, the P250 listed in the mid-range for compact pistols, usually a few $100s depending on configuration. Today, though, P250 is no longer the focus for SIG, which moved on to platforms like the P320. That shift means new P250s are less common and aftermarket support is thinner. Buyers now face either used examples at reduced prices or rare new units at uncertain availability. That reality affects long-term parts access and service, a crucial factor when you count on a pistol for daily carry. In short, the P250 is a valuable lesson for designers and buyers alike. Innovation is great, but if innovation forces the user to spend time, money, and technical effort to get the gun to behave, the benefit is diminished. If you want a carry pistol that works reliably right away with minimal tinkering, A modern striker-fired compact will usually be a better fit. If you enjoy customizing, building a modular system, and don't mind the extra work to optimize parts and magazines, the P250 can be a rewarding project. 3. Taurus Curve. A stylish design for deep concealment, but it comes with too many real-world compromises. There's something almost seductive about the Taurus Curve's shape, a gently curved frame and a plastic shell that hugs your body, so the pistol really melds into your waistband or underwear. The idea is perfect deep concealment. On the catalog page, the Curve looks like a creative solution for anyone who needs near-invisible carry. It wears clean lines, is slim, and promises a convenience that traditional micro-pistols haven't delivered. But when you put it into real use, draw, present, fire, reload, its limitations show up, and that's why many experts warn, don't make the Curve your primary everyday carry. In basic terms, the Curve is chambered in 380 ACP ammunition with a short barrel, an overall length in the small compact range, and a relatively lightweight compared with metal frame pistols. Those specs make it an attractive concealment option, but they also set the stage for the problems that follow. The reason the Curve gets put on don't carry list isn't a single flaw. It's a bundle of design shortcomings that directly affect handling and reliability in high-stress situations. First, the natural grip on the Curve is disrupted by the body-shaped shell. You don't get the traditional purchase points, and your hand tends to ride higher than on a standard pistol. That can end up with your thumb or the back of your hand partially covering the sights or forcing you into an uncomfortably high hold to find any purchase. When adrenaline kicks in, holding the gun consistently is critical, and the Curve makes that harder. Second, the trigger and brake feel on the Curve don't match modern striker-fired platforms. The trigger travel tends to be uneven, and many shooters report they need a lot of practice to get a reliable first shot under pressure. That, combined with the Curve's unusual shape, makes it harder to build fast, instinctive draw and shooting drills. Quick reloads, manipulating safeties, and follow-up shots are all more awkward than with a conventional design. Third, magazine capacity and reload options are limited because of the Curve's distinctive shell. You can't use standard replacement magazines from many manufacturers, and the common practiced reload techniques people train with don't always translate cleanly to this platform. That creates a real tactical limitation if you ever need to run a rapid magazine change or rely on a spare mag in a high-stress scenario. One issue people often overlook is holster and accessory support. Because the Curve's silhouette is so unique, traditional holster makers have trouble producing a retention-secure holster that still allows a smooth draw. In practice, finding a non-printing holster that also lets you present the gun quickly is a puzzle. And if you don't have a good holster, the concealment benefit evaporates under the weight of awkward presentation and slow draws. Combine that with the other points, and the Curve ends up being useful only in very specific cases. Deep concealment where you're okay with slower follow-up shots and don't plan on fast reloads. On reliability, the Curve isn't universally derided. Many reports show it runs acceptably with typical defensive loads, but acceptable isn't the standard for a carry pistol. For a gun you trust to protect you, you want consistent performance across a range of ammunition and conditions. The Curve tends to sit around average on that metric. Also, because of its non-standard design, repairs and replacement parts aren't always straightforward, and OEM parts can be harder to source if the manufacturer doesn't offer wide support. To its credit, the Curve does what it set out to do. It hides extremely well. If your single priority is no one can tell I'm carrying, the Curve delivers. It's light, comfortable, and with the right clothing you'll forget it's there. But that advantage cuts both ways. If you ever need to draw and shoot quickly, the design's compromises become glaring. Price-wise, the Curve was marketed in the mid-range for micro 380 pistols, a few $100s at launch, and second-hand prices vary by condition and popularity. Price isn't the main concern here. The real question is whether you're willing to trade off standard handling, clean trigger feel, and a broad spare parts ecosystem for deeper concealment. For most people, the answer is no. There are slimmer, modern pistols that offer good concealment while preserving conventional ergonomics, crisp triggers, and a wide support network. Those are the practical choices for everyday carry. In short, the Taurus Curve shows how a bold idea can fail if it sacrifices the core elements of a defensive pistol: reliable manipulation, simple handling, and consistent performance in all situations. If you're thinking about a Curve, understand you're buying a highly specialized concealment tool, not a do-everything carry pistol. And that difference is exactly why many experts listed among guns they wouldn't recommend carrying as a primary option. 2. Ruger LCP II, small but mighty, and a reminder that small always comes with practical trade-offs. The Ruger LCP II is a perfect example of the trend to make a gun you practically forget you're carrying. It doesn't try to be a carbine or a compact multi-role pistol. Its goal is clear: to be a true pocket gun. Light, thin, and able to disappear into a pocket or shirt. The basic specs tell you that right away. It's chambered for 380 ACP ammunition with a barrel length of about 2.75 inches, an overall length of roughly 5.17 inches, a height around 3.6 inches, and an unloaded weight of only about 10.6 ounces. Those numbers put the LCP II among the smallest, lightest carry options out there. The standard flush magazine usually holds 6 rounds, which fits the philosophy, one good shot is better than a lot of sloppy shots. And that trade-off is exactly what you accept when you choose a pocket gun. Accepting that philosophy doesn't mean ignoring practical realities. The LCP II improved significantly over the original LCP, mainly because of the trigger. The reset is shorter, the break is cleaner, and overall it's much easier to get a reliable first shot on such a small platform. An essential upgrade for a tiny pistol where every hand motion is amplified. Still, the physical limits of pocket guns remain. First, recoil and recovery are sharper. With a very light frame and short barrel, even the lower power 380 ACP cartridge produces a noticeable snap, and you won't get the smooth follow-ups you'd see from a heavier compact. That means follow-up shots are slower unless you practice solid grip and recoil control. Second, ergonomics. Despite Ruger's best efforts to shape the grip, the small dimensions mean people with larger hands often can't get a confident hold. That not enough grip feeling leads to poorer control under stress and directly impacts accuracy. So even with the improved trigger, you must train for a firm grip and good trigger control. The pistol won't do that work for you. A practical reality to face is that pocket guns trade concealment for handling. With the LCP II, limp wristing, basically not holding the gun tightly enough while firing, can make the pistol more ammunition sensitive than heavier designs. If you choose the LCP II as your carry, you need to commit to practicing grip and follow-up shots and to routine function checks. On the plus side, the LCP II benefits from a rich aftermarket for holsters and pocket carry solutions. You can find tuckable holsters, pocket clips, and magazine carriers easily, which helps make everyday carry realistic in a way that some obscure micro pistols aren't. In terms of reliability, the LCP II generally meets the out-of-the-box usable standard for most owners. The trigger improvements mean many examples run well with a range of 380 ACP defensive loads, provided you follow the basic rules. Test several magazines, try a few brands of defensive ammunition, and keep the slide rails and recoil spring in good condition. For a pocket gun, consistency is gold, and the LCP II delivers that more often than many older micro designs. Still, don't treat generally reliable as a guarantee. Ongoing maintenance and periodic function testing are mandatory if you plan to depend on it. Weighing pros and cons, the LCP II truly disappears when you carry it, with size and weight that let you forget it's there. The trigger is a clear improvement over the original, helping accuracy on a tiny platform. And the accessory ecosystem means you can set up a practical concealed carry system. The downsides are obvious: low capacity, sharper perceived recoil, and ergonomics that don't suit everyone, especially people with large hands. Many carriers use a spare magazine or a magazine carrier to add capacity, but that comes with an extra step in both equipment and technique. Price-wise, the LCP II sits in the affordable segment. When it launched, it was commonly priced in the few $100 range, and on the market today, you can still find new or used examples at varying prices depending on condition and included accessories. Compared with other pocket pistols, the LCP II strikes a reasonable balance between concealability, cost, and reliability. In closing, the Ruger LCP II doesn't pretend to be anything other than an excellent pocket gun. It's not perfect and it's not for everyone, but if you understand its limits and commit to the training it requires, it can be a dependable concealment companion. Just don't expect it to replace a compact full-size pistol when you need more capacity or easier handling. 1. Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. The benchmark for daily carry, why it often sits at number 1. If you want a blunt conclusion at the top of the list, the M&P Shield is a clear example of a compact pistol that does most of what a carrier needs, not because it's perfect, but because it balances the key things in a rare, useful way. On paper, the Shield is traditionally a single-stack 9mm with a barrel length of about 3.1 inches, an overall length of around 6.1 inches, a height close to 4.6 inches, and an empty weight of roughly 19 to 20 ounces depending on the variant. Typical capacities run the gamut. The classic model is 7+1 or 8+1 rounds. The Shield Plus raises that to 10 to 13+1 rounds thanks to extended magazines. The Shield X is a variant with a larger grip and features for shooters who want to optimize their setup. Those numbers show the Shield doesn't try to be a pocket pistol, it aims to be concealable while still giving you a real grip for accurate shooting. The reason the Shield often ranks first isn't only about specs, it's about how it actually performs in people's hands. The trigger feels consistent, the break is predictable, and the reset is short enough to follow up. And that translates directly into being able to get a fast, accurate first shot and then stay on target for follow-ups, which are the two most important things in a high-stress moment. The frame is wide enough to give you a solid purchase, which helps tame recoil on a single-stack 9mm better than most micro pistols. At the same time, the design stays slim enough to carry comfortably all day. The Shield also benefits from a huge accessory ecosystem, holsters, magazine carriers, day and night sights, so customizing it for your carry rig and lighting conditions is straightforward. From a logistics point of view, easy access to magazines and spare parts also reduces long-term operational risk. That said, the Shield isn't without faults. Some older runs drew complaints about slide finish or grip texture. A few owners say recoil on a single-stack 9mm still feels noticeable compared with larger pistols. If your top priority is maximum capacity, the classic single-stack Shield might push you toward using magazine extensions or choosing the Shield Plus or Shield X, but that often means sacrificing a bit of concealability. And like any compact pistol, the Shield demands practice. You still need to drill grip, trigger control, and follow-up shots. No gun replaces regular training. Price-wise, the Shield sits in the mid-range. Retail on new examples commonly falls between $350 and $550 depending on the model and equipment, such as whether it comes with upgraded sights, a special finish, or higher capacity magazines. Considering what you get, ergonomics, a good trigger, out-of-the-box reliability, and a wide support network, that's a reasonable investment for a daily carry gun. In short, the Shield isn't a perfect pistol, but it handles the fundamentals extremely well. Concealable, intuitive to operate, a good trigger, and reliable in practical use. If you want a gun you can trust day in, day out without spending time on major tuning, the Shield is a strong candidate. That's why, in a list of what not to carry, the Shield often appears as an exception. It's a model you can carry with confidence if you've tested it and trained with it. In the end, the biggest lesson from this entire list is simple. A handgun isn't about looks, marketing slogans, or the name stamped on the slide. It's about performance when you actually need it. Every model here was made with good intentions, but design compromises, reliability issues, or overcomplicated systems turned them into risky choices for everyday carry. When your life may depend on a trigger pull, there's no room for "it works most of the time" or "it's fine after a few tweaks." A true carry gun has to do three things flawlessly: go bang every single time, handle naturally under pressure, and be simple enough to maintain even when you're tired or stressed. If a pistol fails any of those tests, no matter how sleek it looks or how good the marketing sounds, it doesn't belong in your holster. So before you decide what to carry, test it thoroughly. Put real rounds through it, check how it handles after hundreds of shots, and see how it feels when you're drawing under real speed. A few extra hours of testing now could save your life later. Because at the end of the day, the best gun isn't the most expensive or the prettiest one, it's the one that works every single time you pull the trigger.